In order to get bills passed, a House Speaker generally needs to work across bipartisan lines. Once Representative Mike Gallagher retires on April 19th, Republicans will only have one vote majority in the House. Joining us now to discuss the full implications of this is NTD's news contributor, Mike Leon. He's the Policy and Strategy Director of the Free and Equal Elections Foundation and host of the News Commentary podcast, Can We Please Talk? Mike, great to see you. How prepared do you think Speaker Johnson is to work with Democrats? And what might this look like, especially with the possibility of being ousted as Speaker looming over his head currently?
Steph, good to see you first and foremost, as always. Yeah, for Speaker Mike Johnson, this has just been a mess because his own conference right now, yesterday, Representative Thomas Massey said in front of the conference that he thinks the Speaker should resign and he's going to join Marjorie Taylor Greene's motion to oust Speaker Johnson, potentially if she brings it up. So, it's been an issue right now. You saw recently, I know Epic Times has just put out some articles about that there's going to be a vote on Saturday on some of the bills that you just mentioned around Ukraine funding, Israel funding, and obviously the border. And there's already been Representative Chip Roy, Representative Troy Nehls, who have both said there are going to be no votes. They don't feel that Ukraine should get any type of funding, at least to the amount that Speaker Johnson wants to give. And what Democrats truly want from this. Again, Democrats' point is that Russia's invasion of Ukraine will lead to Poland next and the Baltics and other regions, and it's imperative to give them funding to be able to protect themselves from having Putin go further west into Europe. So for Speaker Johnson right now, look, razor-thin majority. There's been resignations up and down. You just mentioned Mike Gallagher of Wisconsin. You just mentioned before, if you didn't, I'm mentioning it right now, Ken Buck retiring as well, coming up in April. This has just been a mess. And they really have nobody to point to but themselves because they started with this majority. And now we're seeing the most conservative of folks like Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, we haven't passed anything meaningful that conservatives, true, hardline conservatives would want. And who's the speaker behind all of this right now? It's Mike Johnson. So I don't know how he can work with Democrats. I spoke with Representative Glenn Ivey recently on our show, who's a Democrat from Maryland, said he's open. There's moderate Democrats that are willing to help the speaker pass legislation, but he's got to be willing to work with them. And Kevin McCarthy worked with them, and then the next day went on a news network and killed Democrats, which is what led to Democrats shifting their vote to oust him. So this is a mess for Speaker Johnson right now. I don't know where it goes from here, to be honest.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of the resistance from the Republican side as well. Is there anything else there that you can see why he's facing that resistance and ire, really, from his side?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing is the border and immigration, right? Representative Chip Roy represents Texas. He's been the most vocal voice right here saying that immigration, and we've seen it in polling data, it's the number one issue that folks are talking about, discussing, in addition to the economy, right? So we need to allocate resources to improving border measures. And now they want a HR 2, some type of version of that to get passed. There was the bill that obviously was introduced by Senator Langford that didn't get anywhere in the House. So they would want to disassociate the immigration funding from what the Ukraine and Israel funding is. But there's split amongst the Republican Party of how to do that. And that's the problem right now is the vote margin, like you mentioned before, Steph. It's too thin. It's only down to one vote. So Speaker Johnson needs to reach across the aisle and work with Democrats. And right now, Democrats are not giving in. They want to focus a little bit less on immigration reform and focus more on the money to Ukraine and Israel aid.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike Leon. Always great to speak with you.
Thanks for having me, Steph.